today we're doing a project for CS341, and we're using a CTA database using Link. All right. Currently, I am Fayaz Khan, and I'm sitting here with John Toledo. Actually,
Hello.
we're using Google Hangouts. Actually, we're not even sitting in the same room.
It's amazing how
Actually,
far technology has come.
yes. And right now, I'm in my pajamas. I don't know what John is wearing, but
Pajamas also, yeah.
yeah, so we're going to give you a quick tutorial on, or give you comparisons of SQL and Link, and see, like, the just how it works. And so our mission is to build a database app using Link, and we're also going to use the database of CTAL stations and ridership info. This has actually been provided to us by Professor Hummel. And yeah, and so John, if you could show the GUI, that'd be
Absolutely.
fantastic.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so in this project, we this is the GUI that we have designed for the CTA project. And if it loads up in a second, right here. Come on. Oh, there it is. This is the GUI that we've designed for the CTA database that we were given. Um, it's nice.
Let me take over a little bit because
Sure.
I'm actually in love with this GUI
Okay.
actually.
Take it away, fast.
Yeah, this is actually absolutely fantastic. Actually, like I stepped away for like 10 seconds, and all of a sudden John came out with this fantastic looking GUI. So like if John, and again, I can't control his computer. We're recording actually on his computer. If he hits display, so John, can you do me a favor? Can you actually hit the display button? Um, and so like so this pops up, right? You have all the lines, right? And then like for instance, if John hits the brown line, you'll notice to the right it's updated, right? And it shows all the brown, wherever there's a brown line, it just shows all that, right? And then that's pretty much for all the sort of different lines, purple, orange, blue, right? And just he just cranks right through it. But let's just say if he wants to text, let's say if he wants the 47th Street, right? We're just picking up random, right? And hits boom right there, right? Green line. And then you notice to the right, it says 47th Harlem bound, right? And this is actually fantastic. So, and then let's try the 63rd bound, actually. Yeah, oh, okay. So right there. So notice, look at the compass, actually, right? It points to the north because it's heading in the north direction. But let's say if he's doing 63rd bound, right? The image updates and now it's going southbound, right? And it shows the total ridership, average ridership, right? And also, this part where actually thoroughly impressed me was the handicap access, right? It shows that this is handicap accessible, right? Some people obviously need that, and yeah. And so this one is not actually handicap accessible, and then also he has a display all button, right? It just shows the whole thing, just dumps out the whole thing, right? And as far as the GUI part is, I think that's all. It's pretty sort of self-explanatory. John, do you mind going into actually the code of all this?
Absolutely, I'd love to. So the GUI part, that's always a little fun, time consuming. I'm not going to get into too much on how these pictures are being displayed back and forth, but the more interesting part is actually looking at the database that we were provided and using Link to actually access them. So fortunately, I was familiar with this database thanks to CS480 in the summer with Hummel, so it made things a little bit
So jealous.
easier.
So jealous.
So jealous, yeah. So the very first thing we see is with any linked database, the first thing we want to do is we make the connection at the very top using one of these data context objects. We initialize the connection right here, and that's all we really need to get started. Things started. That's the simple part of this thing. So initially, if you notice, the form loads all the stations. That's done as soon as the application itself runs. And so this is how we perform a link query right here. And it's very easy to understand here. What's happening is you're selecting all the colors from the table called lines, and you're selecting all the possible colors that there are in each row. This is where there's a conditional if statements for displaying the actual images, which isn't so much interesting, changing the visibility. But these queries are very, very small, very easy to understand. It's kind of once you understand and grasp the structure of LINQ, you will see that it's a lot easier to write than writing in SQL, where you have double, maybe triple the code of this right here. Other forms of LINQ that are maybe a little bit more complicated is the event handler inside stations that displays a load of information. So we're going to look at some of that code for LINQ. All right. So here we see we're actually doing a join here. And it looks quite similar to the SQL one, but once again, it's actually easier to understand in my opinion. When you look at this, you kind of start backwards in a way. This LINQ is written backwards. We're returning, so what we're doing is we are actually joining two tables based on a foreign key here called station ID. The primary key, if it matches the foreign key of this table, we combine those records, and when we combine these records, we're only grabbing the name of them, because ultimately that's what we want. We want to know all the stops that are connected to this station. These are
Mm.
returned in some kind of a list of objects, list of whatever. We don't really know. But the point is, we can't just access each object in there directly. We have to use, we actually have to iterate through these objects to access data in there, which is what we're doing here in this for loop. So this
Mm.
query returns the objects that I requested, which was the name. I want all the names where the station IDs match. And once I have these list of names, I'm going to iterate through those list of names and actually grab the name from each object and display it into the list box. So
Wow.
what do you think about that, Fayaz? Is that a little bit
That's
too much?
it's fantastic. It's very similar to SQL, but like it's just like in a sort of different order, right? But like and yet more compressed, right? It seems to be more logical, right? And simple.
Yes.
Yeah, I really do like it.
Yeah, so and there's I mean you can do a lot of optimization with LINQ just as you would in SQL, avoiding queries when you can. Here we're selecting one of the stations, and this is very similar right here to this highlighted portion to SQL's um, the aggregate function called like. So instead of using like, that doesn't exist in LINQ. So we're doing dot contains. If there's a name in here that contains the selection that the user clicked, we're going to grab all this information about that row, that corresponding row. So dot contains, that's pretty English-like as opposed to like.
Mm.
So it's pretty clean if you look at this. You don't have to worry about executing scalars and you still have to check for nulls and stuff, but the point is like this is a lot more concise, more cleaner code than you would writing a dynamic query in a C sharp database that you would be programming in. So
For sure, for
this is
sure.
very clean cut.
Hmm.
Um, as you can see here, every object that contains that selection, we just grab all this info, and
Yeah.
we can't access one element of dude in here. That's what I called it, dude. We're gonna have to iterate through each one respectively and grab the information that we need to make the corresponding choice here.
Mm.
The more interesting one though in LINQ here is when we're looking at stuff this is just performing a summation. It's just grabbing the daily totals for the current station that was selected. So we just say, if you notice here, I actually avoided using another LINQ query here. In the iteration of this loop, I grabbed the station ID. Why? So I can use it later. So I don't have to run another LINQ queries. It's all about optimization
Mm.
and being very efficient when running these queries. So
That's
here,
smart.
I didn't have to join a table because I knew what station ID I needed. So here I'm grabbing all the totals for the total riders for the station selected. By the
Mm.
end of it, sum is actually this sum right here, the one highlighted here, is actually going to be it's pretty much going to be an array, a vector, or a list of all the totals, right? but they're not
Mm.
summed up or anything. They're just a whole list of them corresponding to the station ID. So here is something very interesting that we've actually been learning in class called this thing is actually we're going to use it as an enumerable type. So what that means is that we're going to be able to iterate, doesn't matter what kind of type it is, we're going to be able to iterate through it. And here we can see that we say sum, which is a horrible name because it's similar to the other one, is equal to the query that we just ran as an enumerable. And we're actually calling an aggregate function from SQL, which you're actually allowed to do. So we're going to iterate through this query as an enumerable and apply this aggregate function called sum. And this should be very similar to all the concepts we've been learning in class, which is lambda expressions. For each element in there, access the total cost of it and perform a summation on it. So it iterates through each one using a lambda expression. What do you think about that, Fayaz?
That's awesome. I just love how so concise and compressed it is. And the thing about it is like when you look at just SQL, right? You sometimes get overwhelmed. Like, oh, what does this do? What does that do? What does this do? But with Link, it's sort of like self-explanatory. Like a novice could sort of like, oh, like I sort of get what's going on here. It's really I like it a lot.
All right, I'm glad you feel the same way, and I'm not the only one here putting on a good show for everybody. But similarly, this var average here, which is misspelled here for fun. So we're kind of doing this something quite similar. We're saying, okay, that query that we just ran up here, this link query that we ran, we're going to perform a select on it. So we do a dot select, and that select comes directly from the SQL language that you're more familiar with. And here we see another lambda expression. These things are all over the place in almost any language you go to. And it's quite great to understand how these lambda expressions work because they will come in handy. So what we're doing is we're selecting each element from that query, and the only thing that each object has is the total cost. So for each element in the sum query, we grab the total cost and we're actually doing a summation. By the time this thing finishes, we're going to have some really large number, a big summed up number. And that summed up number, what are we going to do with it? We're going to take the dot average of it, which is also an aggregate function built into SQL. So it's kind of cool that Link allows you to use all these great shortcuts, great clean techniques, and it's very this Link does not only work with databases. Actually, it works with many different data types, with vectors, with arrays of vectors of objects. It's countless number of things that this thing can go through. So once this thing finishes, we do a dot average on it, and we end up with the average of all the sums. And once again, what I was saying was Link is quite impressive. That it's very versatile, very flexible, and it allows you to use its own unique features that it brings to the table, such as more English-like language, less code, more concise, flexibility, and also at the same time, you can incorporate some of the stuff you already know through SQL. And that's why I think Link is a fantastic thing that everybody should be fully aware of and comfortable with, because not only will it allow you to benefit from any ADO.NET programming you may be doing, but you should definitely take advantage of this great technology that came from a student's PhD. Can you help me out there, Fayaz?
It's what I think is yeah, essentially was it's his thesis,
His
right?
thesis.
And it
There
was
we
like
go.
one of his
Yes.
yeah, and it was and it took that and they made a language out of it essentially. But yeah, we could be speaking about this all day. Actually, I think our time is actually up. I believe.
All right. Is there anything else you would want to say, Fayaz, to finish this awesome discussion about Link?
Uh, no, actually, honestly, no. It was just one of those things where I sort of had a hard time grasping the difference between SQL and Link, right? But it was sometimes we have to realize that we don't overthink things, right? And that was the difference between Link and SQL. It's just to sort of like let go of things, right? Like how Professor Hummel keeps on like mentioning, just learn to let go a little bit.
right.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. My name is John Toledo.
And my name is Fayaz Khan. And can you go back to my screen
Oh
because
yes.
I have
Yes.
a final I have a final thing to
Okay.
show.
Sure. No problem. All right.
And thank you and behave yourself.
Thank you, and thanks for watching. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you.